Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I know, I'm pretty excited about it, too. Look, there's going to be one overarching question on today's show, and, I'm going to try and get some better answers than I think so, which is my answer for now. But when I see all the videos of the drones that are just kind of floating over someone's head up in New Jersey or that whole area, I'm like, why is no one just... Like, y'all don't have one idiot in your... Millions of people live up there. None of them are idiots with a gun? None of them? Because, down here, this would be like the new prize. Be like duck season, rabbit season. No, it's drone season, baby. So that's kind of one of the reasons I think they're not testing this down here. They have to test it up in New Jersey. If they did this in Houston, they'd come back with no drones. Anyway, if you have an answer for that that's not so smart alecky, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. My first guest is going to talk about something quite a bit more serious. Julie Bauke's back on with the Bauke Group. Listen, you do career coaching, and one of the things that has been of concern with the shooting of the United Healthcare CEO is that this kind of discourages some people from wanting to be a CEO or take on these dangerous jobs, or we didn't used to think of this as a dangerous job. What effect does this have on the job market and candidates for these jobs?
Interesting is that over the last, year, 2 years, there's been a real decrease in the number of people who are interested in promotions at all levels. And when you think about, we used to climb the ladder. That used to be the thing. That used to be the entire reason we showed up. But more people are saying no thank you to whatever's the next natural step in their job or career. So this is creating a real vacuum in candidates for leadership at all positions. And so I would imagine that when you get up to that level, because people are looking at that and saying, with every level of my career comes additional responsibility, comes less freedom. Sure, it comes with more money, but money's not everything. And I'm not having a relationship with my kids, my spouse, and I'm much more visible in every way, whether it's in social media, whether it's with people who want to knock me off for some reason. And so the visibility that goes with promotions, even promotions at a lower level than CEO, instead of just saying, yes, please, like boomers and Gen X used to, the younger generations are saying, I'm not so sure it's worth the risk. So the activities of the last week or so certainly add to that reluctance.
Well, we have like a mini version of that in my industry. Like if once you get to this position, I don't make a ton of money, but I have that visibility like a CEO. So if I get pulled over for drunk driving going home from dinner last night, it's probably going to be in the paper. I'm probably going to lose my job. On the other side of the glass, though, Garrett, no one cares about him. He can go get pulled over for drunk driving. It's probably not going to make the paper. We probably wouldn't even know about it.
Yeah, that's true. You're right, because of social media, everything just gets really blown up and twisted, and there's so many false narratives out there. And so if you did get pulled over, it would not only would it make the news, but everybody who's ever listened to your show would come forward with all kinds of crazy conspiracy theories and he was with this person and that person.
Oh, and I would automatically be an alcoholic. Yeah. There would be no middle ground to it. It's not like he's a casual drinker who just had a bad night. No, I'd be the worst thing ever. The other thing I've also seen in our industry that kind of echoes this new trend is in the sales department. You see someone get promoted to sales manager, and a lot of times after about 6 months or a year, they'll step back down into being just a regular salesperson. And they all say like the same two things. Number one is it's a totally different job and it's not worth the stress. Number two is I wasn't a salesperson anymore. I was in management, and that's not what I wanted to do. I liked being a salesperson, but now I'm not going on sales calls. I don't have clients and, get to wine and dine and have a good time. And no, it took all the fun out of their job. And so I've seen people voluntarily give back a promotion.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's so interesting is I've had a lot of conversations with Gen Z and millennials who are on that track, who are considered to be high potentials with their organization, and their ambivalence about taking on what they perceive as more responsibility that doesn't come with what feels like commensurate pay increase, they're not that thrilled with it. It might be a fancier title. I might get something a little, but they're not seeing the benefit of doing that. And anytime, so the thing that popped to mind, because I know I was going to be talking to you this day, is I live in Cincinnati. And as you guys probably know, Joe Burrow's home got broken into when he was in Dallas on Monday.
It wasn't me.
I know.
Okay.
And it is amazing to me what his and then of course his swimsuit model, apparently girlfriend, is the one who called it in. And we know in Cincinnati he's a very private person. And all of a sudden, everything, I have seen so many false stories associated with that we here know to be false. And it's just blown up. And so and he said, I understand this comes with the territory. This comes to being a high profile person. But it's difficult. Even though I'm a high profile person, this is really, really difficult to take. And I think we've just lost any sense that when you are a high profile person or a highly paid person in any field, that you really give up a lot more than most of us would be willing to give up.
Julie Bauke, where do they find your work outside of WBAP?
Julie on the Job on Instagram and TikTok, the Bauke Group online on our website is the Bauke Group.
All right. Well, thank you. It's perfect time to talk to a career coach, so I appreciate your time.
Anytime. Bye.
There's Julie Bauke. Coming up next, Neil Sperry continues our Christmas is for Caring fundraiser, and you'll hear me answer an email from Russell where he's asking about presidential immunity and the pardons going on and some weird things that could happen in this transition that I took the time to type out an answer to him, and I'm just going to read you both his email and my answer. Coming up next on The James Show, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Is that a drone? I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Merry Christmas. This is our 46th annual holiday charity fundraiser benefiting the residents of the Denton State Supported Living Center. Christmas is for Caring, hosted by Neil Sperry. And Sperry, you got me interested in this store in Denton called Impressions. Tell the guys listening about it. Thank you very much, Neil Sperry. What a great cause. I want to go check that out because I always like going to the downtown square in Denton because they have that one place called Fine Arts, but the way the sign is set up, it's fine going across and then arts going down. And so it looks like it says fine farts because the F looks like it's on both words. And I see that every time. And since I have the maturity of a 15-year-old boy, every time I laugh when I go downtown. I got an email question here from Russell that I think you would like. Because, you know, sometimes when I get an email, I'm like, I bet a lot of people are thinking these same questions. So Russell says, question number 1, why does the president need presidential immunity if he can pardon himself like you hear people say he's going to do? Well, the president, if he doesn't have presidential immunity, he would just be bogged down in lawsuits and unable to do his job if he didn't have the immunity. If you could sue him for the jobs that he's doing, while he's still in office especially, but really when he gets out of office, you kind of need some level of immunity because they are doing extrajudicial things as actually part of their job, you know? Because, look, whenever you say there's going to be a law for anything that's going to be enforced by anything more than a fine, even with a fine, you know, what happens if you don't pay the fine? You're going to go to jail. Well, anytime you're going to take someone to jail, put some cuffs on them, go through that process, you're risking an escalation, you're risking violence, and you pretty much have to say, this law is so important that it needs to be enforced, even knowing that some people are going to die in the enforcement of it. That's the crazy part about, you know, plastic straws. I understand for like theft, if, you know, we can't just let this guy go if he fights against us. So if he fights against us, we're going to have to fight back and he might end up dead. And if that's the price we pay for punishing thieves, that seems to be worth it. So it kind of goes along the lines of that. You know, you have to have immunity to do your job. I mean, think about the war powers. Okay, he's the commander in chief of the military. And if he's going to drone someone on the other side of the planet, is he going to be able to get sued for that? Or is that murder? Or what happens if there's an American that charges the White House and and that he gets shot? So there's some level of immunity. The libertarian in me says we've gone way too far applying it to all the bureaucrats and police officers and whatnot. But there's things that they're involved to that are illegal under regular civil norms that are just a terrible part of having to enforce laws, period, point blank, end of story. And plus, we haven't ever seen anyone pardon themselves. That's not to say it can't happen. There's just no precedent for it. But if you read the way it's written in the Constitution, I guess someone could get away with it. I don't know what the courts would say hadn't happened. Question number 2 from Russell. What did all the Democrats do so horrible and illegal during Biden's term that they would need to be pardoned ahead of time? All 10,000 of them. And what are they so worried about Trump's presidential immunity if they were the ones doing all the illegal stuff? Well, first you have to get them to admit they did illegal stuff. But yeah, whenever someone throws out the idea of I'm going to blanket pardon someone or a group of people, even if they haven't been charged with a crime, that makes you think, well, what did they do? What do you know that we don't know? Very good question. But they're concerned. They're really only concerned about Trump's presidential immunity because they want to circumvent that immunity that every other president, an elected official, bureaucrat, police officer, they've all enjoyed the immunity like this. And they want to get rid of that norm specifically to stop Trump. There's no real underpinning or philosophical base behind it. They're just anti-Trump. And then Russell also asked, how does all this blanket pardon stuff work? Like, does it have to be completely political or does it cover anything and everything that person has done during that time, whether it's against Trump or not? If they robbed a federal bank, are they good? Or how exactly does a federal pardon work if you hadn't even been accused or investigated of anything yet? Like if anything comes up, no matter what it is, are you actually free and clear and just good to go? For example, I hereby pardon the United States and all its citizens from 1940 till now. A little extreme, but you get it. Okay. Now, my answer for you, Russell, is not my answer. I've asked Jeremy Rosenthal different versions of those exact same questions. And so the way it's been practiced thus far, and again, these could be changed because the law, the way it's written in the Constitution, is so vague about presidential pardons that it really sounds like you could do that. There's just no one has. But the way it's been practiced so far, presidential pardons have been used to cover federal crimes. They've never been used to cover a blanket amount of time like we're doing with Hunter here. So this is kind of untested territory, but that doesn't mean it can't happen because go look at how it's written in the Constitution. Pretty vague. But also, I asked Jeremy Rosenthal the second part of your question. Can you be pardoned for something you haven't been accused or investigated of? Like if anything comes up, no matter what. Absolutely. Absolutely, yes, that's happened before. A couple of great examples that have happened right before me, but in the lifetime of most people listening to WBAP right now, when there was a blanket pardon for all the Vietnam draft dodgers. That was covering a sort of point in time and just a whole genre of different charges without doing anything specific. And most of the people who enjoyed those pardons hadn't been actively accused or investigated of anything. And then the other more specific one is the Richard Nixon one. Hey, anything that having to do with that Watergate crap, he's pardoned. He hadn't actually been charged with any crimes. He hadn't been indicted. So there's a couple of precedents for that, Russell. So again, these are not my original thoughts. I am just repeating what I heard from Jeremy Rosenthal. If you have any more questions, James at WBAP, James at WBAP. I got some more. Russell says, one more thought. I hear a lot about having a czar for this and a czar for that. In America, we're supposed to be free. Why are we worried so much about oversight and what's allowed and what's not allowed? If there's a law, follow it. If there's not a law, either make one or mind your own business. Ooh, I totally agree with you on this one. Czars are a terrible look, in my opinion. You know, because czars are just, it appears to be someone who has control of a big federal agency or initiative. But since it's not a cabinet level position, we don't have to have Senate confirmation. So you kind of have the power of people in the cabinet, but you don't have the oversight or the, Senate approval, Senate confirmation. But aside from the theoretical stuff, in practice, czars have almost always seemed to be doing things that are unconstitutional to people who are originalists, people, libertarians or people in the Constitution Party, or the very far right wing of the Republicans, like a Mike Lee or a Rand Paul. Think about it. Drug czar. What do we need a drug czar for? I believe in ending all drug prohibition. We don't need a drug czar. We don't need the DEA. We don't need the FDA. The Constitution says there's no federal role for infringing on a citizen's freedom in regards to drugs. If you want to do something like that, maybe do it at the state level, but I would still recommend against it. Educational czar, same thing. I don't think we should have a Department of Education. I don't think we should have education regulations at the federal level. So why do we have an education czar? So yeah, not only do I not like them in principle, I don't like them in practice either. 800-288-9227 if you want to be a part of the show. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Donald Kimball from Young Voices about Christopher Wray announcing his resignation and why that's got some red flags. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yes, I did get enough emails and response yesterday that we're going to do the James Show meetup Tuesday, December 17th, Richardson Bar and Grill. It's on Campbell, like not even a mile east of 75. So it's pretty good centrally located. I know where our hot zip codes are. Also, I'm working on the owners of the place. They're all day listeners. They're big fans of WBAP. And they asked if we could do any specials. So I'm working out a deal with them right now to where if you order the hot wings on Tuesday at the James Show meetup, the unofficial James Show meetup, they can guarantee that all of them will be right wings. So no, I can't tell the difference. It was a joke. Donald Kimball's joining us back on with Young Voices. Now, Donald Kimball, you're my guy that's keeping an eye on these, the nuances of the political world. And when Christopher Wray resigned, it's not surprising knowing that he's already had his successor named, but is this guy going to be in trouble?
It's a good question. I think that, when we're thinking about individual appointments of, like the head of the FBI, we have to remember that organization, when it was founded by someone who themselves was a very diabolical figure. I don't know many people who have much love for J. Edgar Hoover, but this was an organization founded by that. And to some degree, I think that sort of seeps through the entire roots of the organization. So even if you have a new head of the department there, I don't know that you're going to be able to fundamentally change its nature from what it was. And, if listeners aren't entirely off the top of their heads familiar, remember that J. Edgar Hoover used the FBI to enact personal vendettas against people, spy on American citizens, infiltrate organizations and groups, blackmail Martin Luther King Jr. and, target his group, the civil rights movement. So it's always been an organization that's seemed to have an agenda to seek out a vendetta. And so, you can change out the head, but I mean, as Donald Trump found out from 2016 to 2017, when he appointed Christopher Wray, that doesn't always prevent the system from targeting you.
Yeah, so Christopher Wray was actually part of the reason why Donald Trump's campaign in 2016 got spied on. Christopher Wray is one of the people that fudged a FISA court document to get the Carter Page warrant. And so they could, de facto spy on Trump because Carter Page is in his circle and standing next to him at all times. How does Christopher Wray even have a job at this point?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, to some degree, he currently has his job because the Biden administration obviously has very little issue with targeting political opponents, as we've seen them do more outwardly and directly. I think that the biggest flop was him being appointed in the first place, and I believe that was around 2017. Again, you can say that Trump was green at appointments, and hopefully this time he's learned and done a little better. Picks like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. maybe are indications of a shift there. But again, it's one of those institutions where I tend to think that it's so rotten to the core that even if you have a really good guy in charge, at best it will be harmless only to be sort of dormant for a later date to once again be weaponized.
So do you think that there's going to be an investigation into this guy and what all he was doing at the FBI? Are we going to let bygones be bygones and just try and limit the destruction going forward?
I think that so there is currently a House investigation going on. Jim Jordan is heading that up, and he has indicated that he will continue to investigate even after Christopher Wray's departure. There's always a tension between what is going to be the most headline grabby and sort of grandstanding, maybe is more accurate, grandstanding sort of news piece that you can come out with for your press releases to garner support. But I do think Jim Jordan is pretty sincere in his wish to see justice done in this regard. So I wouldn't be surprised if this does actually blossom into a fuller investigation even after he leaves in January.
Well, shouldn't something happen to him for falsifying the documents to the FISA court? Isn't that illegal? Because the whole point of the FISA court is so we don't abuse these powers, and then here they are abusing these powers.
Well, it's kind of like asking a group whose self-interest is to not have scrutiny put upon themselves to scrutinize one of their own. It's always kind of it's kind of why there have been problems in the past with some of the police courts, when they try their own, because there's been shown to be evidence that they're going to be biased in favor of their own, because they themselves don't want to have stricter pressures put on themselves. So I think it's kind of when there's an incentive to let off someone else because it will make your own job easier, or you don't want your own scrutiny, I think you're going to see people naturally in that way. So I don't know that we're going to see.
No, that all makes sense.
Much movement.
That all makes great sense. Donald Kimball, great insight. I appreciate you being on the James Show. Where do they find you outside of WBAP?
Yeah, KimballDonald.com. I've got a new piece called Superheroes and Sign Suits. If you're into superhero movies and wonder why they've gone off the rails, I write about that in Man's Search for Meaning. So really appreciate checking it out.
Now, that sounds interesting. Thank you very much, Donald Kimball. I appreciate your time again, sir.
Thank you.
Coming up next, I'm going to answer a great email I got from Paul yesterday on the drones. And since they're still a big headline today, it's going to fit perfect into the show. I love it when you people help me out with show prep. And if you want to send me an email, james@wbap.com, or you can send me a Facebook Messenger messages is the most common way I get questions from you. So I'll have details on that and the James Show meetup coming up next. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Coming up next, you're going to hear a great email from Paul about his theory on the drones. But first, let's check in with Neil Sperry, who for the 45th year in a row is hosting the 46th annual charity fundraiser for the Denton State Supported Living Center. Hey, Neil. Great. The number is 214. I just switched screens. 214-525-2550. Thank you very much, Neil Sperry. Man, $4,000. We don't even know their name. They're not going to get appreciated for that. They went out and they spent their time earning that money, saving that money, and then they're just doing the right thing and turning it over. Absolute angels. Now, I don't know about Paul here, but he's nice enough to send me an email about the drones, which we don't have answers for these. There's a lot of people, you know and I know, that they know where these drones are coming from. But hang on, Paul's asking some great questions here. James, if our military was doing drone testing, the last place they would do it would be New Jersey. There are 100 better bases to do it at. The Army would do it at Fort Hood, not in Killeen. Well, I think it's Fort something else now, Cavazos. Didn't they have to change the name of it? Because Fort Hood was one of those evil Democrats that was a Confederate general. Oh, yeah. Notice when they change the names and they tear down statues, it's almost exclusively Democrats who are incredible racists. It's almost like they're whitewashing their own history. Anyway, back to Paul's email. The Army would do it at Fort Hood, not in Killeen. I'm not calling it by whatever its new name is. The Air Force could do it in Dyess, or if they wanted to do cold weather testing, Elmendorf, or I don't know how to say that. Ellison? I don't know. I don't know these bases. But the Navy could do it anywhere over any ocean, off any carrier or cruiser or destroyer, or even submarine for that matter. One thing I've noticed about these giant drone arrays is they actually take up a whole lot of space when they're setting them up to take off. When they do the drone displays that you saw for 4th of July here in downtown, or when they do it for New Year's coming up in a couple weeks, they need like several football fields worth of space to set all these drones up in a grid so they can all take off at the same time. So I'm imagining if they're doing this offshore, it would have to be on a platform that has a ton of space. So what are they, like an offshore oil platform? I don't know, maybe. Aircraft carrier, well, that would fit the bill. But I don't share your idea that there's a bunch of better places to do it than New Jersey. They couldn't do it at Fort Hood or Cavazos or whatever they're calling it now. Why? Because the second they leave the airspace of the base, we're just going to start, boom, this is what's going to happen. We'll just shoot them down. Remember, we're dealing with Texans here. And while we're fun and everybody likes us, and there's all kinds of giggles we can have about how much we love guns and how fun it would be to shoot them down, it really would be fun to shoot them down, and we really would do it. Like we grew up playing duck hunt. And I don't know if you've ever done like the skeet shooting. That's not like that kind, the little clay discs that you throw. That's fun, man. That's just like the video game. So for those of us from the country who, when we were growing up, we just go in our backyard and do that. Oh my goodness, what a treat it would be to have a swarm of drones. Look, free targets. This is all we would say. That's what I would see if I saw a swarm of drones coming over me. I'd be like, baby, get the shotgun. Woo! I got all these shells and I hadn't shot them yet. Oh man, that'd be so fun. We could have we could train our dogs to go pick up all the drones we shoot down. Now, enough with the jokes and minimizing it. Here's where it differs. We're being told that some of these drones are huge, like the size of an SUV. What? Well, now we're not dealing with a drone. Now you're dealing with an unmanned aerial vehicle, like from Avatar. You know how they had the quadcopter propellers on the top? So that lets you know it's not some goober who's ordering them off Fry's online, or I guess Radio Shack doesn't exist, but you know, the ones you can get at Best Buy or something to that effect. These are not your normal retail drones. This is someone with either specifically made drones from a serious hobbyist, or you got to start leaning toward this is probably our military. I guarantee you, if it was the Chinese military doing this, we would know and we would already be shooting them down. Well, I'm 99%. You know what the 1% of me thinks? That balloon that they just let fly over and just take pictures of all our bases. And, you know, the Chinese balloon that went over our airspace, I guess a couple years ago, we let that thing fly all the way over. So there is, I guess, some precedent for unmanned aerial vehicles of some sort spying on us from China, and it didn't get shot down until it made it all the way over. But I'm surprised we don't have more answers from that. I do love hearing your theories, though. So send them in, james@wbap.com. You can call in 800-288-9227. Float me a Facebook message. I welcome all theories until we know the truth. Your theory is just as good as anyone else's. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Dr. Jeff Brodeur from Rigaku, who might have some insight on the drones, but also he's going to buckle down the latest info and updates from Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas, Syrian rebels taking Damascus, and you'll get all caught up on it with us. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM 93.3. Well, welcome back to the big show. Dr. Jeff Brodeur is coming back on from Rigaku. He is an internationally recognized expert in chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear issues. And there you go. He knows how to work a phone better than me too, probably. Dr. Jeff, can I ask you about the drones first? I know usually we focus on more foreign policy stuff, but this could be a foreign policy issue. Is this coming from our military, someone else's military? What's your initial thoughts on that?
So it's good to be with you again. You know, there was a report I read just this morning that a Chinese citizen was arrested in association with a drone in the eastern U.S. I don't know if that's part of an overall program. We've had Chinese nationals try to infiltrate federal reservations, namely military reservations, throughout the United States. Not a new problem.
Well, infiltrating also Eric Swalwell's bedroom.
I'm not an expert on that, but it does appear that the Chinese may have traded in their hot air balloons for some drones, which is concerning on a number of levels. These have been reported, in excess of 5 to 6 feet, so they're not your Amazon purchase drones. These appear to be industrial with a significant payload. You can do surveillance with them, facial recognition software, but don't forget, they're dropping ordnance with drones in the Middle East every day.
So is there any way our military doesn't know who these are and where they're coming from? And they're just, it sounds like they're pretending to not know because they don't want to tell us yet.
Yeah, I would tell you, I don't know. I hope they do know. It's pretty easy, though. All of those drones are wired by default to give off a signal and their serial number and that sort of thing. So identifying the drone itself by serial number and who the responsible owner is not a difficult thing. That's pretty easy. And if it's not broadcasting a signal, that tricks me up to let me know that it's probably a nefarious actor that has gone in and reconfigured the default settings.
Yeah, because whenever I hijack a plane, I disconnect the transponder immediately, so I can't be tracked. They probably do something similar for these drones.
Yeah, it's probably something like that. But, taking down these drones is not too difficult. Our Department of Defense and Department of Energy's national laboratories have been fixated on this problem since October of 2018. If it's a drone, they can land it. With violence or with permission. Well, it doesn't matter.
I have seen them like outside music festivals take a drone down by pointing some goofy cannon looking thing at it that jams up its communication. I'm not imagining this. This wasn't like an AI video. They can take these down just by jamming them, can't they?
No, they absolutely can, and it depends on how the drone is modified. Remember, just aluminum foil over the receiver will block that signal from the default settings of the drone. And if the drone is communicating via satellite, not cell phone, or direct link to your transmitter, then it's following a pre-programmed path, and you're probably not going to convince it with a broadcast like that. We do have drones that will go on suicide missions. They will intersect and they will collide with a drone, rendering them useless and victim to gravity. And then there are other drones. There are other systems that will catch them in fishnets. They'll use kinetic solutions and non-kinetic solutions. I guess the bottom line is our U.S. government has got a number of tools at their disposal to eliminate this threat if they choose.
The common man, if he sees a drone outside, can he just shoot it down with a shotgun?
Yeah, that's the quick way to go to jail. I'm not a lawyer. That's airspace is governed by the FAA. I wouldn't do it. Take a photo of it, report it. You know what the DHS says. If you see something, say something.
Yeah, I just remember we had this issue years back when drones first became popular, And I believe I remember interviewing lawyers at the time said, well, if it's directly over your airspace and under a ceiling of like 400 feet or something that's high for us but low for flying objects, then legally speaking, you could shoot it down, but it has to be like directly over that rectangle of property that you own, and you can't be in a city that already has ordinances against firing guns within city limits. And so, I mean, there were some real narrow instructions on that, but I guess generally speaking, yeah, you're destroying somebody's property and it's not over your airspace, and we would generally frown against that. I just wanted to ask you if you had heard anything more specific.
Yeah, and in fact, I've heard the contrary. The U.S. citizen does not own any airspace. The federal government does. And they write the regulations and the rules as it applies. And that's frustrating because sometimes, you know, we own the surface, and sometimes in contracts we own the mineral rights, things that are below the surface.
All the way to the core.
We generally don't own any of the airspace, just like we don't own any of the frequency on the spectrum. Most of that is owned by the government or sold by the government or leased out by the government.
Yeah, that's a solid comparison. But the situation we were dealing with was very much a civil one and not what could be a national security or some foreign threat. There was like someone using a drone to peek in a second floor window, and some guy shot it down because some guy was peeking on his daughter. So I don't know. Gray area. I'll have to find another lawyer to ask about that. Meanwhile, what is going on the other side of the world? I want to ask you again, now that we have a few more data points coming in on Damascus, is Syria going to be better off now after the overthrow?
It's still too soon to tell. I think HTS and their leader Jolani is learning. They're learning that governing is more difficult than fighting. They don't own all of the support throughout the country. In fact, there's another militant group called the Southern Operations Room. I don't know where they get these names, that controls much of southwestern Syria. Jolani's trying to come up with a hybrid government so that he can harness the support of most all of the fighting forces. It'll be interesting to see if he does. I don't know, and I don't have a whole lot of confidence if the citizenry is going to accept it. Remember, they've been under authoritarian rule since 1970. That's a good 54 years. And generally, the person with the biggest stick wins in that country. And whatever their religion becomes the government religion, and others will be tolerated to some degree or not to a large degree. It's also important to understand in that country and countries like that, greater than 80% of the jobs, all the jobs are government jobs. So if the government stops, people stop getting paid. So many people, about 80% or more of the citizens in Syria, received their last paycheck more than a week ago. And they have nothing to do but complain and watch and protest. And when they protest, and remember, there's no police force out there. So they're not going to talk about it. They're going to hit about it. So we should expect unrest and violent protest. I think the border countries have already sealed up their ports of entry. Things like chemical warfare agents and weapons of war, especially the high dollar ones, have already been identified under somebody's custodial care. Some tribal warlord has claimed ownership. And if they're pilfered, they'll be flown in and out of country just because the land borders aren't accessible right now.
That sounds so much like what happened to Libya after the Arab Spring. Get rid of Gaddafi. Yeah, he wasn't great, but now you've just got, factional warlords and constant civil war. And I don't know. Is Libya better off without Gaddafi? I'm not too optimistic about either one of those. So Syria not looking too good. Go ahead.
No, Syria is not. Interestingly, if we take a look at history, we have a number of failed states that continue to fail. We have Somalia, Libya, Yemen, Afghanistan, and now Syria. All fell since 1992. And they're just cesspools for the black market and violence.
I hear you. All right, Dr. Jeff Brodeur, thanks for keeping an eye on this for us. You can find him, Rigaku Analytical Devices. Appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Coming up next, we'll get an update on Christmas is for Caring, and I'm going to let you know where you can get the Super Bible. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Sports fans, James Parker here for the Prize Picks app, and there's a big Army-Navy game coming up this weekend. Prize Picks can add a little fun to that game you're already going to be watching. Wait, they can do college sports? Yes, they can do college sports. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. It's so fun. It sounds criminal, but it's legal, even in Texas. So go check it out. And all you do is you look at some statistic on some of the players, like the quarterback for Army, Bryson Daly. Is he going to have 1.5 touchdowns is his statistic. All you do is guess, is he going to get more or less than that? That counts rushing and receiving TDs. That sounds like a pretty easy guess, wouldn't you say? Well, why don't you go get him, and then you add one more person. You have a lineup. You could turn your hobby into some cash. You want to try it out? Download the Prize Picks app with your first $5 play when you use my promo code WBAP. I'll give you $50 in promo cash that you can play with, and after you win, you turn into real money, and you can withdraw it. Works fast, easy. I do it myself. Or I'm sorry, if you're a Navy guy, they have some pretty good statistics over here for your Navy guys. Do you think the fullback's going to get 19 and a half yards? Is he going to? If he gets 20 yards, boom, cash. If he gets less than that, well, then you can say some bad words about him. But go check it out. Prize Picks app. Use promo code WBAP. You get $50 with your first $5 play. And they've done a new promotion with the statistics and the odds over here to where, depending on if you get a lineup of 6 players and you don't pick these little easy ones, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. So that $50 in promo that I'm giving you turn into $50,000. You might want to try it out. Prize Picks. Run your game. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We're going to talk about the economy coming up in the next segment with Bill Denny, financial strategist. But right now, we're going to check in with Neil Sperry, who's hosting the 46th annual charity fundraiser for the Denton State Supported Living Center. Hey, Neil. 214-525-2550. That doesn't go to some far off phone bank on the other side of the planet. It goes to 8 angels who are in the conference room is behind the WBAP studios. And they're in there. And make the phone ring. Make them busy. They're giving up their time. Make it worth it. 214-525-2550. All right, coming up next, some of these other stories definitely crowd out the headlines, but we've been getting a steady stream of economic information that's on both sides of the optimist-pessimist boundary. So I'm going to ask a legendary financial strategist here for North Texas, Bill Dendy, coming up about that next. If you have any comments, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Also, I got a couple emails during the show so far, people asking about the meetup. Yes, I got enough people that responded. I don't feel good that I had to throw a hissy fit yesterday for people to actually reach out and send an email, say, no, I would like to go. I just thought enough people would. I'm surprised you didn't get enough interest already. Well, if you don't email, I don't get the interest. But now I got it. We're going to do it Tuesday, Richardson Bar and Grill. I'm working out a deal with the owners for them to do a special. They have hot wings on the menu. And if you go Tuesday and you order, they're doing this just for me. It's going to be all right wings. Isn't that neat? It's a special. We're doing it just for you. All right. I know, right? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Joining me for this segment, financial planner extraordinaire Bill Dendy is back on the James Show. Bill Dendy, first things first, I saw that there's some rule changes in overdraft fees that I see a lot of people celebrating, but I'm not celebrating this. Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
Rule changes, you've got people who are pushing for changes, so they're very happy, but there are a lot of folks who are saying that this is not a positive thing. I like free markets. I like openness. I like the ability for the less regulation rather than more regulation, but I think that we're still going to see the outcome of this one.
Yeah, and so for those who didn't hear it on the news updates, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, BARF, says that overdraft fees, instead of being $35, which they typically are now, they can't be higher than $5 per check. And so a lot of people think, oh, well, families are going to save hundreds of dollars because they want to pay overdraft fees. Well, yeah, but they're going to make that money up somewhere else. They're either going to give you less of an interest than they otherwise would have, or maybe it's no longer free checking, or maybe it goes from $12 a month to $17 a month. But there's no free lunch.
And oftentimes, rules like this have the unintended consequences of causing the very people they're trying to help to suffer, because what we may see is the inability for people to have that type of protection, the inability to even open up accounts without certain balances, some of the things that may be actually detrimental to those that we're trying to help out. I think that we've seen this in a lot of different areas, and I like the concept that you don't go, I mean, it seems so unfair already. When you bounce a check, they're going to charge you money that they know you don't have because you bounced the check. And so it seems like you can get buried with this in a hurry. And so I understand sentiment, but at the same time, if you make it difficult for companies to recoup cost and to survive, they usually tend to not lend to the people who have higher credit risk. They tend to not offer the same opportunities. And so often the laws that are trying to help the consumer, especially at the lower end, may actually be detrimental. We'll see how it works out. But you're right. The fees will be covered somehow. If there's a true cost for this, it will be passed on somewhere.
Right. And I'm one of the slobs that hits overdraft fees. I just bang my head on them all the time. However, my irresponsibility is actually subsidizing and benefiting people who are responsible, who do keep up, who don't do overdraft fees, because the bank gets more fees out of them. They have to charge the more responsible, financially speaking, people less. And so these people might lose their free checking, even though they were doing everything right, in order to help out the people like me who are being irresponsible. And that's definitely not fair.
Well, it's going to be less expensive for you going forward.
Yay.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
If it really works out that way.
Reward the losers. Okay. Other things going on is we had an inflation report that had inflation kind of going the wrong way, 2.7%. That's even on the fudged CPI, chained CPI number. Your thoughts on inflation, Bill?
Well, inflation is not dead. The Fed wants to lower rates back down, but they are likely to take a pause after this month's reduction, if they do a reduction this month. I think most people believe we'll see another 25 basis point reduction, but the challenge is after the elections, with Republicans in the House and Senate and the executive branch, and with the deregulation and the tax cuts to corporations, this is very positive. This is very good. The stock market has performed so well up until now, with the anticipation that we're going to have lower interest rates plus all this other goodness. But all this other goodness is inflationary. And so we're starting to see people feel good. They see their stock market portfolios going up. They like opening up their 401k statements now, and they're feeling rather flush and rather comfortable going into the holiday season. And so people are spending money. They feel like if they've got a job, they'll probably keep that job. Now, if you don't have a job, it's taking longer to find a new one. It's like companies are in a stagnant place where they don't want to make a commitment either direction. So layoffs aren't happening in a big way across the board, although some local companies have had some layoffs. But across the board, companies aren't quick to lay off. They're not quick to fire. People with jobs feel like they're going to have their jobs. They feel like their bank accounts are bigger, and so they're spending money. Well, all that creates inflation, which the Fed was trying to stop inflation. So they may not be able to lower rates back down. And that then has the markets scratching, traders saying, well, gosh, if they take the punch bowl away and rates don't go down, that could be a negative impact. And so we'll probably see some choppiness and volatility as we see how all this plays out. But the policies are relatively positive for the stock market, but negative for killing inflation. They're actually inflationary in nature.
Trump rang the bell in the stock exchange this morning. Do you think the Wall Street generally is happy about Trump, whether they admit it or not?
Well, how could they not be? With the tax cuts for corporations, it makes them more globally competitive. The talk of tariffs to protect U.S. manufacturing sounds good, but that may actually be negative for the consumer. But as far as less regulations and lower taxes, that does translate to a higher present value of future cash flows. That does translate into higher stock prices, and that's what we've seen. But if interest rates stay where they are or move up, that is kind of negative for long-term stock prices. It costs more for companies to borrow money and costs more for consumers to consume as their revolving credit card debt stays at very high levels. And so it's kind of like the wind is blowing one direction and the tide is going another direction, and the seas look very turbulent. We're probably going to see some of that turbulence, but overall, we're probably seeing very positive stock performance because of this underlying. But always keep in mind, the market can break your heart as soon as you start feeling comfortable with it. And we haven't had a 50% drawdown since, well, gosh, I guess 2008, year 2000, 1987. And at any time we can see that market cycle do its cycle. So this is probably a great time for people to make sure they haven't gotten overexposed or more aggressive than they intended to, and take advantage of still the relatively high historic rates of returns we get in fixed income to maybe adjust portfolios while we still have good prices in the stock market and good rates of return for our bond markets and our CDs.
Well, look, you're a financial strategist. Do you take on clients these days?
I would love to take on clients these days. It's one of the things that I think used to be only the wealthy had to work with financial advisors to manage things, but now most of us, in order to have that comfortable retirement, we have to amass some money. We have to know how to amass it, to grow it before retirement, and we have to be able to turn it into income to generate that stable replacement of our paycheck after retirement. And that's two-faceted. That's a big job, and I think that even those friends of mine that are CPAs or have their MBAs from SMU, where I went to school, they want somebody who specializes in that area, even if it's just to get a quick bounce off the wall. Talk about, is this the right direction? Am I on the right path? What else am I not thinking about for my tax situation, along with my investment situation, along with my overall retirement plans and other things we want to do?
All right, this is Bill Dindy, Alicorn Investment Management here in Dallas. Thank you very much for your expertise, sir.
God bless you. Always a pleasure.
We're going to have to talk to Bill Dindy one day about the coming collapse of Social Security, because some people get a lot of pushback when that comes up. And I got to tell you, I'm the kind of sicko that enjoys it, because you can argue with me. You can argue that Social Security, there's nothing wrong with it. Fine. Give it about 6 years, and then we'll check in on where you're at with that one. Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit trail right now, because I love the mean emails. Coming up next, though, the Dallas Hero Group, the one that got all these propositions passed, they are now suing the city of Dallas for not enforcing the laws against homeless people camping in public. That was one of the propositions that passed. You can now sue the city for not enforcing its own laws. So the question becomes, what do we do about these urban campers? We'll talk about that next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. If you have any hot opinions on that, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Coming up, I'm going to talk about this new lawsuit against the city of Dallas for not enforcing its laws against public homeless encampments. But first, let's get you updated on the Christmases for Caring drive with Neil Sperry. Neil, I went and looked it up, impressions on the square in Denton. It's a real tiny shop right next to the Atomic Candy Shop. But what a great place to go pick up some gifts. Two 214-525-2550. Be the Christmas miracle for someone else. Thank you very much, Neil Sperry. All right, so this is specifically, this next story is exactly what the proposition was intended to do that we just voted on in November, and that was to be allowed to sue the city of Dallas for not enforcing its own laws. Now, this is interesting because, boom, we already have this one in action. The same group that got the propositions on the ballot that we voted on is now suing the city of Dallas for not enforcing its own laws against camping in public spaces. And we all know this is for homeless people. This isn't like for some guy in Highland Park who thought it'd be exotic to go hang out under the bridge for a night, so it's a tough one because this all tears at our heartstrings, especially if you have that Christian nobility of helping the sick and the poor. But what do we do with these people? When you kick them out of their tent from under the bridge, where do you take them? Do you take them to jail? Do you just say, I don't care where you go, you can't stay here? No easy answers to this. And I'll give you my thoughts after we talk to John in Dallas. You're next up on WBAP. What's your thoughts on what do we do with these homeless encampments?
Hello.
Hey, John, go.
Hey, what's going on? This is John from Dallas. Anyway, I just wanted to say I drive Uber around town. And what I've noticed is, like you said, there's people under the bridge. And I don't know if, other than some of them, for the most part, I think most of them get a paycheck, get an income from Social Security or just, so they have something coming in. Just real quick, an idea I had was maybe enclose the bridges underneath the bridge and close it somehow to where if the city can make money, the city will enforce the law. But they haven't found a way to make money off these people or off this situation. But if they enclose the bridge and charge the people to come in and lodge, and for shelter, that would be a way for them to make money. And believe me, they would enforce it at that point. And that's just an idea. And there's a lot of bridges under there. I drive by them all the time. They're completely empty. I mean, there's a lot of room there, a lot of space to utilize, and I don't feel like I feel like it's just wasted real estate under the bridges.
I feel that way too. I would prefer they turn it over to like private sector commercial use rather than just kind of codifying the de facto use of being a homeless encampment. But one thing I've learned is, I first had to study and deal with this on the radio here in Dallas, and then I learned the same thing when I went to when I was on in New Orleans. And the fact that the number one thing you hear thrown out, well, we need to have more resources available, or we need to do more with homeless shelters, or we need to throw more money at the problem. Well, what actually happens is, to give you an example, there was a big homeless encampment under the bridge right behind the radio station when I was in New Orleans, and it's right by the Superdome. So they clean it out right before football season starts because they don't want you to see all the homeless people on Monday Night Football or whatever. So I would go interview these people, and then I went and I actually interviewed the mission, the New Orleans mission. And I was like, well, are y'all just packed tonight, or are y'all full to the brim? What capacity are you at? They're like, we're not even halfway full. And I'm like, well, why 2 blocks away do we have a giant homeless encampment? They don't want to stay in the homeless shelters.
Well, they don't want to stay because you're making it. We're making it more than it has to be. You can't change these people. You can't say, hey, you can't be drinking and you can't do dope and you got to be in at this time. You can't put those kind of regulations on it.
But what that means is we're always going to have homeless people. We can minimize it. We can get it smaller than it is now. But we actually do put enough resources out there that no one has to sleep on the street. You do have to follow some laws. You can't be booting black tar heroin in the homeless shelter. You also can't be punching other people in the homeless shelter. You can't be, exposing yourself or a bad actor. And so even with all the resources we have, and there's more shelter beds available than homeless people in pretty much every major American city, we're rich. We're the richest country ever. Yeah, it's hard to understand, but some people prefer to be homeless. And so now you're pretty much dealing with people who are either mentally ill, just psychos, or they have an addiction issue. But there's, for almost everyone who's just down on their luck, someone will let you sleep on their couch or stay in their garage. You have an aunt, you have an uncle, you have a high school friend, you have an old boyfriend, or you have something. The network around here is great. But it's not that we're not throwing enough resources at it. And I don't have an answer. I don't know what we do about the people who are so ill-behaved they don't want to go into the homeless shelters. I have no answer for that. 800-288-9227. And it's just hard for me to accept. Some people just love camping out. They just love being outside. They prefer that to being indoors in climate control. Why? Because they got to have their liquor, or they got to have their drugs, it's so bizarre. I wish there was an easy answer, but I still don't have one yet, and I've been reporting on these things for 20-something years. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yeah, welcome back to the big show. So it's semi-official. It's not ever going to be official because this isn't like an official WBAP event. This is just an off-site gathering of James Show listeners. We're going to be meeting at the Richardson Bar and Grill Tuesday, 7 o'clock. That's this coming December 17th. All right. And I'm working on a deal with the owners there. On the menu, they have hot wings. But when we go on Tuesday, I'm trying to work it out to where when you order that, it will only be right wings. So that'll be a James Show special from the Richardson Bar and Grill. If you have any more questions, you just email me or at me or whatever. My next guest, Renata Castro, back on from USA for All. She is running a full-service immigration firm out there. And, I feel like it's unfair to our legal immigrants how much of our bandwidth and discussion is used on illegal immigrants. Let's focus on the legal ones here. Can they expect any changes with the new administration coming in January?
Yes, it's very likely that those who are still waiting for some reason, financial, personal, to start an immigration petition, that the Trump administration will enact an increase in fees. Otherwise, it'll be very hard for the government to justify the budgetary increase on law or immigration enforcement without a source to cover that expenditure. So the natural progression will be for fees to be higher for those seeking legal immigration. In addition, because the order will be to dial up and tighten things up, immigration cases, legal immigration cases, will take a lot longer just because USCIS, which is the immigration agency, just doesn't have the bandwidth to accommodate an increase in cases and an increase in time spent per case. Just recently, the USCIS location in Vermont, a processing center, laid off 170 employees in light of a transition to digital cases. However, as a practicing attorney, I can say that USCIS is very behind on the technology and on the execution of online cases. So I believe that we will see more expensive immigration case and a much lengthier time for legal immigrants to obtain the right to work and the right to live in the United States legally.
Well, that's wild. 170 people got fired in Vermont. That's like 30% of their population. Just making a joke there. But yeah, you don't normally think of Vermont as a border state, but they are like the straight line from Montreal down to New York City, I suppose.
Yes, and USCIS has a tendency to put processing centers in areas which need an incentive to create jobs. So it is counterintuitive that as the demand for immigration cases is picking up, we're actually laying off people. But I guess there's one thing you and I agree: American government doesn't always make sense in its decisions, and I think this is a prime example of it.
Oh, we totally agree on that. Now, Renata Castro, another immigration subgroup that I think gets left out of the conversation is people here that would like to immigrate with an E to other countries. Well, whether they're leaving for a job or for love or because they promised everyone that they would leave if Trump got elected. What's the process going to be like? Is there going to be any big changes for people trying to leave the country?
I think that'll be very jurisdiction specific. And one of the things that we have seen is that countries that used immigration to, stimulate its economy, that's the case in Portugal, for example, the government is making it more expensive because demand is up. That's the most basic capitalistic principle of any exchange. If demand is up, you can afford to increase prices. So in my personal opinion, I believe that jurisdictions that are seeing a pickup in demand, such as Portugal, will have an increase, but I don't think it'll be enough to stimulate those who want to move to other countries. I think that the United States currently is the country that's going to tighten up its immigration policies the most. Now, I believe there will be countries which will take advantage of these bright scientists, engineers who want to move outside of their country. The question is, will the United States economy remain the supreme object of desire of those individuals? Because that's what brings people here. It's the safety and the economic prospects of growth.
All right. If you are consulting with someone who's an immigrant here and their visa's about to run out and they don't think it is going to get renewed, but they don't want to go back home, what would be like the second choice country for people who were enjoying the United States but now have to find somewhere else?
That's a great question. I always discuss with people alternatives to moving to Canada. I'm not licensed there, but for professionals, that was a country that was very receptive. And there are some countries in Europe that still have a strong economy and a somewhat welcoming immigration policy. Australia is also an option. I believe that I would stay between those countries for those that are looking to work. Because when we talk about immigration has different shades for the different seasons of people's lives. If you are a multimillionaire, I may not recommend, and I've done that in the past, may not recommend for you to come to the United States because taxation may not make it worth your time if you're not going to make money in the United States. They may be better off moving to Dubai, for example. But if you're looking to work, if you're still young and you may have a young family, the United States presents a lot of prospects. And I would think that Canada would be a very close second.
Well, fun stuff. Renata Castro, where do they find your work online if they need some immigration help?
USA for All, USA, the number 4all.com.
Thank you very much, Renata Castro. Appreciate your time on the James Show again. Love having you on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, coming up next, we're going to get back to some of the headlines today because it overlaps with the segment I did yesterday where I was telling you how the media has a tendency to get everything wrong. And for you people who think, well, the media is just falling off, they used to be able to be trusted. No, they were always this bad. You're just smarter now. You're just paying more attention now, or you're just listening to better radio shows now. But I'll show you how the present intersects with the past and the headlines. Coming up next on The James Show, if you got any Smart Aleck comments, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Neil Sperry is hosting for the 45th year in a row, the 46th annual holiday charity fundraiser. How did they do the first year without you, Neil? We're down to 371 residents now. Thank you, Neil. 214-525-2550. Now, for all day listeners, just indulge me for the next couple of minutes. This is going to be aimed at people who are, if you're new to WBAP, or if you've just really started turning a page on paying attention in the last few years. I hear this a lot from people who, we all make that transition from where we're young and idiots to what we are now. Less idiots and older. Maybe not old, but older. And so you would probably enjoy seeing some of the emails and messages I get in the background. They're like, yeah, I love your show. I love the WBAP. I just got wrapped up in it, at some point in the last few years. And man, I just can't believe how bad the media has gotten. And I have to have this conversation over and over with new people. No, the media has always been this bad. You just weren't listening to the other side of the argument. So you had no idea how bad they were. Or maybe you just started paying attention. And there was a handful of times that this came up in the last year or so, like when Trump got shot at and hit in July. What was the immediate speculation? Oh, the guy's a Republican. Remember how they were reporting on that? Oh, he's Republican. He's another crazy right-winger. Yeah, because that's what a right-winger would do. Shoot at their own presidential candidate. Brilliant. It's just great deductive reasoning you have over there. You're all a bunch of Sherlocks in the media. I'm so impressed. But this is the rationale they come out with any of these before we know. There was a Times Square bomber where, if you're thinking a bomb went off in Times Square, no, but like an SUV was smoking out of it, and there was a failed Times Square bomber. And until we got the deets on who this guy was, I have montages of the media saying, yeah, probably a right winger. The dude that shot up the Christian school in Nashville, they were like, oh, look, another school shooter, must be a right winger. Now it was an upset trans person and all the other trans things that have been going on. With this drone situation, now there's some people saying, well, this might be an evil right winger. They conjure up an evil right winger for so many of these situations where we don't have any answers. They were even saying that this guy shot the United Health CEO. Oh, it was probably a Trumpian. I can go find you 10 people that say that. And I put together a montage that was so good. I'm like, I'm just going to stop doing this and use this montage every time it happens. There was the Boston Marathon bombing. Now, it happened on Patriots Day on April 15th. That's when they do the Boston Marathon. And so it turns out that we now know that it was a Muslim terror attack. These guys they were recently naturalized citizens from Chechnya in Russia. And, they're part of a separatist movement that hates Christianity and wants to be a part of the caliphate. And this was all motivated by their mutual hatred of the United States, in addition to their love of Islam. But until we found that out, all we saw from the surveillance videos was there's a couple of white-looking guys.
Conventional explosives, which are much harder to get hold of now. That might be some other kind of right-wing extremist. And
Tax day today, that came up. But of course, it's Patriots Day. Would you, as an expert, be thinking domestic? I don't think tax day means a whole lot to the Arab world or the Islamic world or certainly not to Al Qaeda in terms of their world. It doesn't have any iconic significance.
We really don't know who did this. It was tax day. Was it someone who was you just don't know.
This is well within the capability of somebody with too much time in front of the internet who is looking up bombs and who hates the government, who hates America.
If you are looking to make some kind of a political statement, that would be the place to do it. Copley Square on Marathon
And we have the notion of Patriots Day, that this comes at a time when you had the Oklahoma City bombing in April a few years back, also the Waco Branch Davidian standoff.
Normally, domestic terrorist people tend to be on the far right, although that's not a good category, just extremists. Let's call them that.
Good Lord, these people are awful human beings. You probably don't remember that. It doesn't get repeated, but I just want to remind you also, you never got an apology from those people for being slandered like that. The right wing never gets an apology for that. And they don't really get it wrong going the other way. So when I was showing you yesterday how they got Benghazi wrong, when they got Obamacare wrong, when they had got the Iran 9 months away from getting the nuclear weapon, when they got Hunter Biden's laptop wrong, when they got 2016 Russia-Trump collusion wrong, when they got George Zimmerman wrong, when they got the Afghan withdrawal wrong, when they got so many of these other situations wrong, you never get an apology. And these are the same people that are going to be so concerned about misinformation. They're so concerned about Trump lying. Stop it. It's not even believable. Could you quit slandering us for 5 minutes and start reporting the truth? No, they're not bad now. They've always been bad. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the most dangerous toys of the Christmas year. Is there really that much to be concerned about? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You know, you always see these reports on TV, and they're trying to scare the crap out of you. You know, like, what's in the kitchen that can kill your children? And you're like, oh no, what is it? Are they going to die? And so the Christmas iteration of that is, let's talk about the most dangerous toys that can kill your children. Oh my goodness. Are my kids really in that much danger? Well, don't listen to some goober on the radio. How about we ask a doctor? Dr. Fahmi Farah is back on the James Show. And look, I've been made aware of your prowess in the medical community. I did not know that you were a host of a podcast called Queen of Hearts. This is you?
That is me.
What a great name for a podcast, because you're, cardiologist and you're female and Queen of Hearts. That's brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
Is this something I would like, though? I mean, I don't have like a cardiologist hobby, but I like podcasts.
I think you would. It's a lot of informative things regarding your health. We discuss a wide variety of issues regarding health, heart health particularly. A lot about empowering with your heart and other things. So yeah, I think it's a great podcast for people, and I hope you'll like it.
All right. Do you tell people to exercise? Because that's what all cardiologists do. You need to exercise.
It goes without saying. Of course, I'm going to say that.
Don't feel bad. I'm just a slob radio host, and I tell people that too. And so you're in a safe territory here. I tell people, if you could exercise just 1 minute a day, you would be better off. I go for let's break the bank and go for 5 minutes a day, but you can't do one. Anyway, maybe that should be an episode. It's just because I like to challenge people. Really, you can't fit it in your schedule. You can't just do push-ups or squats for 1 minute. Anyway, let's do that on a future episode. I like to ask a doctor about these stories you see about the most dangerous toys to avoid for 2024. And when I read through this, none of these really seem that scary. I mean, as a doctor, what do you see scary in the toy world?
Anything that children, whenever it comes to toys like children and toddlers, anytime they can put something in their mouth that they can ingest or potentially get stuck and get, they can choke, those are the primary ones that we worry about.
Yeah, so I feel like my youngest kid is now 9. I'm out of the choking risk factor. And so now I have to worry about maybe something like if lawn darts are making a comeback. But they've already nerfed up the children's toys so much this day and age that I really haven't paid a whole lot of attention to how dangerous they are, because I hadn't seen a dangerous one in a long time.
Right. And, one of the other issues is here in the United States, there are a lot of regulations especially for children and young children. But now everything being online, a lot of people are doing online shopping. I feel like maybe that regulation is not as stringent. So, even for a 9-year-old, you're right. Like, there are some toys and gadgets that could be dangerous. So I think paying attention to that is critical for parents.
Well, do you remember lawn darts? You look like you might be too young to remember that.
I'm guilty of not knowing.
Okay, so I don't know when it came out, but I remember it in the 80s. You would take these projectiles and you would put like a hula hoop out in the yard, and you would try and throw it up really high and see if you could get it to land in the ring. Problem is, obviously, if you have a weighted dart coming down, it could hit someone in the head and kill them. But I thought it was a hilarious toy because, hey, I know someone might die, but this is a fun game. Let's try it out. So I think they made lawn darts illegal or something to that effect. And I haven't seen anything that bad since. But I got a list here of the most dangerous toys, and their cautions on them are weak sauce. It's this kinetic sand set you could ingest it and be injured by eating kinetic sand. It's okay, so squishy sand is dangerous because you can eat it. I think some of these people are just overreaching to try and get some attention.
I think so. Yeah, it could be, but I really think when it comes to safety of these things, my concern primarily comes from little children, like ingestion risks and things like that.
Right. There's no more toys that'll put your eye out like in a Christmas Story. So this list, they have I mentioned the kinetic sand. They have the inflatable furious fist, which are potential for blunt force and impact injuries. Well, I know, but they're inflatable boxing gloves. That kind of comes with the territory. That's intuitive. I'm not worried about any of these toys.
Right. If they're like, under supervision, it could still be used safely. But I think in some areas, supervision would be warranted, especially for small children.
Right. Parents, if you ever see one of these lists, go ahead and click through it and read it and laugh at it. But I guess the concern would be for if you have kids or grandkids that are like, what is the choking hazard in as a doctor when you say you can sort of not so worry so much about choking hazards?
Well, I think choking hazard is something that is of concern as with some of these toys also. Like, there's one that's like sand something that, especially if it's put in front of a small kids, they tend to put everything into their mouth. And so that is something they can choke on. So things like that, small children, I just think they should be under supervision if you're choosing something that they can put into their mouth.
How much kinetic sand can I eat without getting sick? Do you know that right offhand?
Unfortunately, no.
All right. What's coming up on the next episode of Queen of Hearts?
The next episode is going to be on women's health. Actually, there's something called broken heart syndrome. If you experience something overtly emotional, like a loss of a loved one or even a bad breakup, it can cause a specific type of heart failure, and that's called broken heart syndrome. So we were talking about that.
Oh yeah. So I really have felt pain in my chest during emotional times. What is that? Am I having a mini heart attack?
Not every time, but yes, people who have emotional trauma going through that in the acute setting, they could have a real sensation of chest pain. They can sometimes feel like they're having a heart attack, and that's actually how this condition is diagnosed. Most of the times, people come into the emergency department and they appear to be having a massive heart attack. Even the EKG detects it as a heart attack, and we take them to the cath lab. We actually go inside their heart to take a look to see what's happening, and that's how we diagnose that this is, in fact, not a heart attack. It's this condition where the heart just kind of gives up, so to speak, from that stress, and the pump just doesn't pump as efficiently, and it causes that heart failure. For the most part, the prognosis is pretty good. With treatment, people usually recover.
Wow, it's a little mini heart attack. Your heart really is broken. Fahmi Farah, you can find her online, drfahmifarah.com. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And now that you know she has a podcast called Queen of Hearts, you don't have to go look up her image and at me, okay? I don't want to hear about it. That's a guy thing. Weirdos do that. All right, coming up next, we're going to get an update from Neil Sperry on the Christmas is for Caring fundraiser going on this week. And then I'll tell you about the local cops busting a theft ring that boosted hundreds of thousands of dollars of Legos. That's coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We have just a couple days left for the Christmas is for Caring fundraiser, hosted by Neil Sperry for the Denton State Supported Living Center. Hey, Neil. Thank you very much, Neil Sperry. Neil Sperry is one of these guys that I just thought he came with the radio. Like, James, how much could you possibly know about AM radio back in the day? Well, in the year 2000, I had car trouble, and my grandmother gave me her spare car that she had bought in 1973. It was an old Comet. All it had was an AM radio. And so the station that Neil was on before this, I'm not supposed to admit that other radio stations exist, but I remember hearing him on that, and that's the same time I fell in love with WBAP in like around 2000. Hal J seemed like he came with the radio. So yeah, it's weird because it would be like, what if you like walked into your house and it was like Tony Danza and Judith Light from Who's the Boss, and you know, it's like meeting people from TV sometimes. And then I forget, oh yeah, you're on the radio. You're supposed to be talking to these people, Parker. All right, let me tell you about this amazing story. Local cops here in North Texas, you know, we have all kinds of violent crime. Nonviolent crime is just as serious. Glad they busted this very dangerous theft ring that was targeting Legos. All right, here, let's just go ahead and make fun of these people for a second. Welcome to the monologue. I'm your host, James Parker. We're going to make fun of the Lego theft ring. First things first. If you're in a dangerous street gang and you're targeting Legos, you're not really in a dangerous street gang. Can we just get that out the way? No, but the Lego street gang, this is real. And they are notorious here downtown. They keep having street rumbles with the thugs repping Connect 4. Oh, man. No, but the Lego street gang, you're not familiar with their territory, but they do rule the elementary school's reading carpet with an iron fist. That's sort of their hood. But no, I just read on the WFAA website, after the Dallas police tracked them down, they arrested them all, and they threw them in a jail made from erector sets. And finally, if you're wondering how someone gets into stealing Legos, it doesn't start with Legos. It usually starts with a gateway theft, like Jack and Lincoln logs. This is stupid. So stupid. All right, quick update on the James Show Christmas party meetup event. It's going to be at Richardson Bar and Grill Tuesday, December 7th. 7 p.m. is when I'm going to aim to get there. When it is it in? Whenever I have to call an Uber. All right, if you want more details, you can email me, james@wbap.com. Send me a Facebook message, whatever. Tell a friend, tell an enemy. Let's make it happen. This isn't an official party. This is just us showing up, hanging out. There's going to be no real entertainment there. And no, you can't throw darts at me. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.